Ever get that feeling like reality is just stranger than we give it credit for?
Yeah.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into a topic that grapples with that very idea, going from, believe it or not, ancient Greek philosophy
Oh, wow.
all the way to modern physics.
You might be surprised to learn that some of the biggest questions about the universe, I mean the really big ones,
Yeah,
were first pondered millennia ago, like way back then.
it's true. And you know what? We're going way, way back to meet Democritus for this one.
Okay.
Not as famous as, say, Socrates, but this guy was seriously ahead of his time.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from a physics lecture by Scott Aronson, and let me tell you, even at the graduate level, they know how to pick some fascinating source material.
Yeah. What's remarkable is how much we actually know about Democritus's ideas, even though, and this is the crazy part, almost none of his actual writings survived.
Oh, wow.
It's like a testament to the power of truly groundbreaking thinking. You know what I mean?
Like it just stuck around.
It stuck around. It made an impact.
Okay, so what was so groundbreaking? Give us the SparkNotes version of Democritus's greatest hits.
Okay, so Democritus, he believed that everything in the universe, and I mean everything from your
Mhm.
coffee cup to the stars in the sky, all of it, is made of these tiny, indivisible particles called atoms.
Okay.
And he also said that these atoms, they're not just like packed together, they're moving around in this empty space,
Right.
which he called the void. But here's the real kicker. Ready?
Yeah, yeah.
Democritus figured all this out, like all of this, in the 5th century BC, using nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, but logic and observation.
Wow, I'm already getting chills.
Huh.
No fancy microscopes,
Yeah.
no particle accelerators,
No.
just pure brain power.
Exactly. Straight up thinking his way through it. And it wasn't just a lucky guess either.
Right.
One of his most compelling arguments, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
It involved something we all can relate to, an apple.
All right, I'm intrigued. Lay the apple wisdom on me.
Okay, so Democritus, he asks us to imagine cutting an apple in half,
Okay.
then cutting that half in half again,
Mm-hmm.
and then again and again, and so on.
Yeah.
And he argues, right, that there has to be some limit to how many times you could actually do this.
Right, like physically a limit.
Yeah, eventually you'd reach the smallest possible piece of apple, a piece that couldn't be cut any further,
Yeah.
an atom. He believed this pointed to a fundamental truth about matter itself.
Okay, so he intuited the existence of atoms, these like fundamental building blocks, centuries before we had the technology to even begin to observe them. That's kind of mind-blowing. But how did he know those tiny bits of apple weren't just, say, smaller chunks of apple? How did he go from smallest piece I can cut as smallest piece that can possibly exist?
That is a great question. And that's where his reasoning about what he called infinite divisibility comes in.
Okay.
So Democritus, he had thought really, really deeply about what it would mean for matter to be infinitely divisible, meaning you could just keep cutting it forever into smaller and smaller pieces.
Oh, okay.
And he realized that this concept, when you really think about it, creates these logical paradoxes.
So he was grappling with the nature of reality itself,
Yes.
just on a scale we couldn't even fathom back then. Which to me begs the question, are we still pondering the same fundamental questions today, just, on a much, much smaller scale?
That's exactly where we're headed from the ancient Greeks to, well, cutting-edge physics. Remember those sleek buildings down the street?
You mean the ones that always make me think science is happening in there?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Inside those very walls, physicists today are wrestling with concepts that would probably make Democritus's head spin, and it's all thanks to this mind-boggling world of quantum mechanics.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and by interesting I mean I'm going to need you to explain this like I'm 5.
All right, challenge accepted. So imagine trying to measure the width of a human hair, right?
Okay.
But instead of using a ruler, you're using the entire Milky Way galaxy.
The whole galaxy, okay.
The whole thing. That's essentially the scale that physicists are working with when they talk about the Planck scale.
Okay.
It's a realm so incredibly tiny, so unbelievably small, that it pushes the boundaries of everything we understand about physics.
Okay, I'm officially lost in the vastness. Or should I say the tininess of it all? What are they even trying to figure out at that size?
They're asking,
Yeah.
are space and time themselves, the very fabric of reality, are they smooth and continuous, or could they actually be made up of tiny discrete units? Just like Democritus imagined atoms being the fundamental building blocks of matter,
Yeah.
physicists today are searching for the fundamental building blocks of reality itself.
So even space and time might not be what we think they are. This is why I love these deep dives. Always makes you question everything you thought you knew. But hold on, if we're talking about scales that tiny, how do we even wrap our heads around it? I mean, we can barely comprehend the size of the Milky Way, let alone using it as a cosmic measuring stick.
That, my friend, is where things get really interesting, and where a certain very famous equation comes into play.
Oh boy, here comes the math. Don't worry, everyone. He'll explain. I'll make sure of it.
No need to dust off those calculus textbooks just yet.
Uh,
But yes, we're talking about the famous Schrödinger equation. Now, before your eyes glaze over,
Please do tell. I'm all ears.
what this equation essentially describes is how the state of what's called a quantum system actually changes over time.
Quantum system being. Is that physicist for anything from a single electron to theoretically the entire universe?
You got it.
Okay.
And this state, this is where things get really strange because according to quantum mechanics, things actually exist in what's called a superposition.
Superposition, like a superhero pose. Okay, I'm kidding, but seriously, what does that even mean?
Okay, imagine a coin spinning in the air, right?
Okay.
It's not heads or tails until it lands.
Right.
It's both at the same time. That's superposition in a nutshell.
So Schrödinger's equation is calculating all the possible states something can be in simultaneously. But how does that help us understand reality at the tiniest levels?
Here's where it gets truly mind-boggling. The very act of us observing a quantum system, like just looking at it, seems to force it to choose one state.
Yeah.
It's like this thing called collapsing the superposition.
Huh.
But where does the observer, like where do we fit into all of this?
Yeah.
That's the million-dollar question, and one that continues to spark debate even today.
Okay, pause right there because I think we need a minute to process that one.
Okay.
You're saying just by looking at something, we're influencing reality at a fundamental level. That's some serious food for thought. We'll be back after a quick break to dive even deeper into this observer problem and what it means for our understanding of the universe, and maybe even ourselves.
Okay, I've had a minute to, really let that last bit sink in.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the more we talk about this whole observer thing,
Yeah.
the more I feel like we've stumbled onto the set of, a sci-fi movie or something.
Right. Are we really saying that our consciousness, like our mind, our very act of observation,
Yeah.
could be shaping reality at its most fundamental level?
It's a mind-bending idea. And, depends on
Right.
which interpretation of quantum mechanics you want to go with. But some interpretations say, yeah, that could be closer to the truth than you might think.
Oh, right. Different interpretations. It's
Yeah.
like quantum mechanics has its own choose your own adventure, with each path leading to a whole different understanding of the universe.
You're exactly right. And, one of the most, probably the most well-known interpretation out there is called the Copenhagen interpretation.
Right.
And this interpretation basically says there's this clear dividing line between the observer and the observed. So on one side, you have us, right? We're these complex beings existing in the world as we perceive it.
Right. Okay.
And on the other side, you have this quantum world. And this world, this quantum world, it operates by its own set of rules, which are bizarre, let's be honest, where things can be in multiple states at once.
Right. Right.
And the Copenhagen interpretation says that it is our active measurement of us observing something that forces that quantum system to make a choice,
Okay.
to collapse into a single state. Like we're forcing the universe to show its hand.
Okay. That makes a certain kind of sense. But it also feels a bit like, I don't know, like we're standing outside a fishbowl, tapping on the glass,
Okay, yeah.
and forcing the fish to choose a direction to swim in.
I like that, yeah.
Like, shouldn't we be part of the equation, not just some outside force acting on it?
That's a great analogy. And you're hitting on the reason why some physicists prefer other interpretations, like the many worlds interpretation.
All right, many worlds. That one always makes my head spin.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to walk me through this one again.
Okay, so picture this. Okay. Imagine a kaleidoscope. You know those things, with all the little pieces
Right, yeah.
constantly shifting and changing,
Right.
with each pattern, representing a different possible outcome.
Oh, okay. I can picture that. Lots of possibilities swirling around. But how does that relate to, well, anything?
So in the many worlds interpretation, each time a quantum measurement is made, in other words, every time we observe something,
Yeah.
all of those possibilities, every single one,
Okay.
actually happens. They all happen just in different timelines, different universes even.
So it's not just that the coin could land on heads or tails. You
Right.
were saying that in the grand scheme of things, it lands on both
Yeah.
and creates two separate realities, two separate universes.
Exactly. It's as if with every observation we make, every time we look at something, the universe splits
Oh,
and creates a new timeline for each possible outcome.
okay. I'm not going to lie. That's a lot to take in. So let me get this straight. It's not just that somewhere out there, there's a version of me who chose a different breakfast this morning.
Right.
There's a whole universe where that happened.
You got it. And the implications of that are really
You
staggering.
can say that again. But let's take this even further, okay? If we're talking about multiple universes branching off with every observation, I mean every single one, what happens when you apply that to something as complex as, well, us, as conscious observers?
Now you're getting to the heart of it. That is really the question, isn't it? What does it mean for us, for consciousness, for the experience of existing, if it's all intertwined with these quantum phenomena?
It's like if we can't even agree on what happens when an electron goes through two slits at the same time.
Right.
How can we even begin to grasp the implications of a human consciousness, like the human mind,
Right, yeah.
existing in a superposition of states, in multiple states at the same time?
And that is exactly the kind of thought experiment that physicist David Deutsch proposed. He asked, what happens if you put something as complex as a computer,
Oh, wow.
or even a human being, into superposition?
Okay, now we're going full science fiction. But I have to ask, I mean, wouldn't that just completely change how we understand what it means to even be human, to think, to experience, to even exist?
You're right, that's really the million-dollar question. And while we don't have all the answers, it speaks to just how profound this field of study really is.
And I think we need to take a moment to appreciate just how profound it is. You know, we've gone from ancient Greek philosophers thinking about cutting an apple in half to questioning the very nature of consciousness and reality itself.
It really is something.
It's enough to make your head spin. We'll be back in a moment to explore these, well, these mind-blowing implications further after a quick break. You know, it's pretty amazing to think that something like quantum mechanics, you know, with all its weirdness, could
Yeah.
actually have these huge implications for us, like
Yeah.
for how we understand what it means to be human.
It really makes you think about, how everything is connected. The
Yeah.
questions that philosophers have been asking, like, forever, right? Those are the same questions that are driving, like, the biggest scientific discoveries.
It's true.
And then those discoveries, they circle right back
Yeah.
and challenge those philosophical ideas.
Right. Like, what do we really know?
Exactly.
It's this crazy feedback loop
It really is.
between the most fundamental questions about, like, why are we here? What is this all about?
Yeah.
And the most mind-boggling science, the stuff that seems like it's straight out of Star Trek.
Absolutely. And a perfect example of that is quantum computing.
Oh, okay.
So we've got this incredible technology, right? It has the potential to change everything.
Everything, yeah.
Medicine, materials, everything. But here's the thing. We wouldn't even have it. We wouldn't even be able to imagine it if it weren't for these philosophers asking those big, seemingly abstract questions about, like, what is reality, really? What is an observer?
So you're saying that even something as practical as building a quantum computer, which, I gotta be honest, still sounds kind of magical to me,
Oh, absolutely.
hinges on answering these, like, existential questions that we've been debating for centuries.
Exactly. You can't just build one of these things without understanding those fundamental principles of quantum mechanics.
Right.
And those principles, like we've been talking about, they're all tangled up with these really deep questions, questions about what it means to observe, to measure, to exist in this universe that seems to play by its own set of rules.
I'm starting to get it, I think. It's like all these different areas, philosophy, physics, computer science, they're not really separate at all. They're all part of this bigger picture.
You got it. They're all connected. And sometimes I think the most amazing insights come from exploring where those fields overlap.
Right, right.
Remember that math problem we talked about earlier? The one about covering all those rational numbers, those fractions?
Vaguely. That one sounded pretty intense.
It is. It is.
Mm.
But it shows how our intuition, like what our brain tells us should be true,
Right.
can totally lead us astray when we're dealing with something infinite.
Whoa.
And that's kind of what we're doing with quantum mechanics, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're trying to take these finite minds of ours and wrap them around a universe that just doesn't care about our everyday understanding.
No kidding. I think I'm starting to understand why this whole field is such a head-scratcher. But in a good way. It's like our brains need a good workout every now and then.
They definitely do. So we've traveled all the way from those ancient Greeks to the edge of modern physics, and what have we learned?
What have we learned?
Well, we still don't have a definitive answer to that fundamental question. What is reality, really?
It's the big one, isn't it?
It is. But you know what? I think that's okay. Sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination.
That's a good way to look at it. And I have to say, I feel like we've been asking some really good questions along the way.
We have, and
Yeah.
those questions, they linger, you know? They make you keep thinking, keep wondering.
They do. They really do. So, to wrap things up, what's something our listeners can kind of chew on, some homework, if you will?
Okay, here's the thought. We've been talking about how our observations might actually be shaping reality, right?
Yeah.
What if, and this is a big what if, our own consciousness, our mind, our thoughts and choices,
Yeah.
what if those aren't immune to the strangeness of superposition either? What if our very thoughts exist in multiple states at the same time? What would that mean for free will?
Whoa, that's a lot to process. So, not only are we grappling with the idea that just by looking at something, we might be changing it,
Yeah.
but now we're also wondering if our choices, our decisions, are they even our own? Are they predetermined by some kind of quantum dice roll?
It's a mind-blowing concept, and it's something that, honestly, we might never have a definitive answer to,
Yeah,
but it's still a question worth asking.
it really is. It makes you think about, like, what does it all mean? Why are we here?
Exactly. It's those big questions that keep us pushing forward, keep us curious.
I love it. A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this incredible journey. It's been a wild ride.
It has.
And for all of you listening, if you want to dive even deeper into this stuff, and trust me, you do,
Oh, yeah.
we'll be sure to link to Scott Aronson's full lecture in the show notes. It's a great read if you're up for the challenge. Until next time, everyone, keep those brains buzzing.